Awesome, awesome. Well, thanks everyone for joining. Welcome to another episode of the Diverse Podcast. I'm here this time with Joe, who is the CEO of Brainlabs. So very, very special episode today. Joe, why don't you start by giving us a quick intro? Let us know a bit more about yourself and your role at Brainlabs.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, as you say, I'm Joe. I'm the UK CEO for Brainlabs. I've been with the company now for about a year. And prior to that, I'd spent 20 years with WPP at one of the big media agencies, and also a few years at a startup. So two very different types of experience that have all been kind of brought into one in Brainlabs, because we are a very fast growth scale up business essentially. And our remit is to deliver digital marketing services for all of our clients across the globe.
Amazing, amazing. Well, you can give us a great perspective, I guess, on what it's like to work at different types of organizations. I didn't know you'd had such a range there. That's really interesting. But yeah, for anyone who's not aware then of Brainlabs, could you dive in a little bit more on what you do so people can really sort of picture that and what it's like working there as well?
Of course, yeah. We're a digital marketing agency, which means that on behalf of our clients, we help them spend their money essentially in digital marketing. So that could be in paid media, so helping them with their search strategy, their social strategy, programmatic media, or it could be helping them with their on-site optimization. So there's a whole group of people, but their whole job is dedicated to helping make your journey through a website more effective and lead you towards that shopping basket and to hit the checkout button. So we have teams that do that. We also have teams that work on SEO performance, which is all of the natural listings that come up below those paid listings on search. So we help them with their content strategy there. We have a tech team that builds technology and tools that allow us to do our jobs better, effectively. And this is really unusual for a media agency to have a big team of engineers. So our engineering team now is 30 plus, and you don't find that typically inside an agency. And this is one of the things that makes Brainlabs quite unique, and certainly makes us much more of a tech business than just a media business now.
Awesome, awesome. Very exciting. Such a range there as well.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, digital marketing is a hugely popular area, I think, amongst, the young audience that we speak to. So it's great that you cover so many different areas as well. And well, let's dive into that a little bit more then. What makes you sort of unique, really? There's this real focus on the data and the technology, isn't it, that goes behind decision making, which is, quite unusual for marketing agencies, right?
I think it is, and it's also the direction of travel for the whole industry. So what's becoming more important is ability to use and understand data. So that means that when we're hiring new talent into the industry, we're looking for that kind of understanding. So analytical brains, scientific brains that really want to dig into and understand the impact that the data can have. So essentially, the more that we know about the customer that we're targeting, the more effective we can be for our clients. We're also spending a lot more time and investment now in the area of data science, which sounds very exciting. And data science is essentially the science of using data to help us better understand the impact of what we're doing. So one of the big challenges for marketing forever has been measurement. And there's a kind of famous old quote, I think it was from Procter and Gamble, that was something along the lines of, I know that 50% of my marketing works, but which 50% is it? And that was back in the day when vast majority of their money was being spent on telly, but actually so much money now is spent in digital, which means that it's infinitely measurable. The challenge that all marketers have, and all agencies therefore have, is actually just trying to work out which metric to use, because we have so much available to us. It's a case of kind of narrowing it down all the time. So we really like people who are very curious about that data, about the performance of the campaigns, and really want to get to the bottom of understanding the impact that we can have on any client's business.
Wow, and I imagine it's a very exciting place to start your career in the digital marketing space, right? Because over the next 5-10 years, what are we going to see? More of that trend, I would guess, right?
100%. And, believe it or not, I actually started my career in digital marketing, but this was back in 1998. And it was a very, very different landscape. And I suppose we were looking for different things there, but actually that kind of curiosity around data and performance, I would say, was still a theme then. Just we had less available to us. It was much harder to see actually what was working. And what I've seen happen over the last kind of 20 plus years is that actually our ability to be more precise, to scale, and to understand impact has just increased.
Brilliant, and it's brilliant. I think anyone who's listening, there's there's going to be opportunities as you're listening to this podcast right here. So we'll have a link to those in the description below. But Jo, why don't you talk to us a little bit about the roles that you tend to have available each year then within this space at sort of an early career level?
Yeah, of course. So at Brainlabs, we really believe in growing our own talent, which it's not scary as it sounds. I'm not literally going to do anything to you. But what we mean by that is we have a pretty unique approach, and we like to have a very consistent approach for our clients. So if you join us at that entry level stage, what you get access to is a year of dedicated learning where we're training you in every area of digital marketing, but you're also getting the opportunity to put it into practice on accounts. And then a career-long time of learning and development as you then stay and go up the organization. And what we do in that first year is really lay the foundations and the bedrock for how to execute in all of the channels that we work in the Brainlabs way. So we have our own tech, we have our own processes, we have our own best practice, and that needs to be followed by everybody that works in the organization. And what tends to happen is when we bring in people from other agencies or other places, they come with a different way of doing things. And actually we have to kind of untrain them a little bit to kind of get back into the Brainlabs way. So joining at entry level is brilliant for us and for you, because you just get to kind of work in the way that the company works best right from the start. And we take in quite large intakes of entry-level joiners. So they could be school leavers, they could be graduates, and we're very open at that stage around who joins the business, as long as they are kind of exhibiting the things that we think are most important. So that kind of curiosity for marketing performance, passion for the industry, an ability to show resilience and commitment, and desire to have a career in the industry that we're in, because we invest a lot in you during that first year and beyond. So it's really important that we can see that you're going to give that kind of payback as well, and that you'll be committed to us.
Oh, interesting. So really a plethora of skills you're going to get to sort of develop in that early role. And I like the sound of that a lot, because I talk to a lot of young people who are really keen to work in marketing, but they don't quite know where to start, and they don't know whether to go, social media or SEO or paid ads or, and so to have a chance to get involved in a little bit of everything, I imagine is really, really helpful to help you decide what you want to do long term.
Yeah, I think it really is. I mean, it's highly unlikely that you're going to leave school or university thinking, I absolutely just want a career in social or search. And you might, and you might end up being right. But actually, if you can come into a place where you might have an inkling that you've got a particular interest in a certain channel, but have the opportunity to still learn about all the others, it will give you so many more opportunities in the future. So the impact of what you learn at the beginning will affect the different kind of career paths you can take as you then go up through an organization. So I think having that kind of broad exposure can be really helpful at that sort of foundation stage.
Brilliant. And you touched on quite a few different attributes you're looking for. So resilience, curiosity, and it's great that you've got an advantage if you're coming in an entry level, because those are our listeners. So take that on board if you're listening. You've got a great opportunity to join a brilliant company at the first stage. Are there any other tips, maybe any things that we should sort of bear in mind in terms of what else you look for, how we can really embody that with our applications and our interviews, secret sauce, if you will, to help someone get hired?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there are the kind of sort of fundamental things that we look for, like mathematical mind and enjoyment of working with data, numbers and spreadsheets, because there is a kind of hard reality that certainly at the start of your career, you're going to spend a lot of time doing that. And if that's not you, you're going to struggle. So probably don't apply if you aren't happy to spend at least your foundational years in that kind of space. And then you've got the more kind of soft skills or attributes that we look for that show the potential of a person in the future. And that's around like motivation. How hardworking are they? How proactive are they? How curious are they? Will they ask questions and want to learn and want to grow? Do they have a passion for solving problems? So we have a very kind of glass half full kind of culture at Brainlabs, and we look for people that don't want to be beaten by the problem, that will just try and find a different way around it. So if you've got a great story of how you've overcome problems in your own life or in any work that you've done before, or in any aspect, actually bring that to the interview, because it helps us understand you as a person. Certainly at entry level, we can't really judge you on your ability to work because you haven't done it yet. So it's much more looking at who are you as a person, what are the strengths of your character, and are you going to be able to do well in a business like this? We look for alignment around our values, so the things that are important to kind of Brainlabs culture, and are you going to be additive to that, and are you going to do well here as well? It's a very high pace organisation, and that won't be for everyone. You know, some people do need to work in something that's slightly smaller and nurturing and slower, and that's great too. But just being very honest, Brainlabs is pretty fast, and if you're kind of happy to kind of buckle up and enjoy the ride, I think you'll have a great time. But you know, just be mindful of that before you apply. So people who are also adaptable, excited by growth. And I think I said before, having that passion for this industry. So why do you, not only do you want to work for Brainlab, but why do you want to work in this industry? Because so many people find it by accident. It's not necessarily a career that becomes obvious at kind of school stage that any advisor will talk to you about. It's quite a kind of small industry, really, and in the wider scheme of things. And it'll probably be something you'd have to explain to your mum and dad around, I'm joining this company that does this thing, and they probably never would have heard of it, not fully understand what it is, and might even say, is it a real job? But I can assure you it's a real job. It's a very exciting industry, loads of learning potential and growth potential. Also, being part of an agency, it's very social. It's very kind of community based. You get a lot of great people that just want to have fun together as well as kind of grow together.
Where can I submit my application then? I want to
Yeah,
join
exactly.
as well. You're making me jealous here.
Yeah, sign up.
But I'm glad you've said, you know, it might not be for everyone though, you know, the fast-paced nature, some of the analytical elements. I think that's really, really important, because I think often young people apply for roles and then they might not be successful, and you're being tested for these things throughout the application process. I think sometimes when you're not successful, that can be really helpful for you as well, because it might show actually this isn't the right place for me, and I kind of need to look more broadly at what I want to do. So I think that's a really, really important point to share as well.
Yeah, just, you know, a little bit of introspection before you jump in, I think can be very valuable.
Absolutely. And you're likely to be far more successful in the application process when you do that, because I think employers are really, and correct me if I'm wrong, but employers are really looking for people who really want to work at that organization because they're passionate about it. They think it will fit nicely into their long-term plans, not people who kind of just feel they need the job, because that's quite scary, right? Because if you're just applying as a bit of a checkbox exercise, you're probably not going to succeed and enjoy the role and be there long term.
Yeah, exactly. And we are looking for long-term payback in the people that we bring in at entry level. It's not come in and do the job and then leave. Like, we want you to be with us for 3-4 years, you know, whatever is appropriate for you. I don't expect you to sign up for life, but I do want people to join because they really want to develop a career, and that takes time. You can't do that in a year. You need a bit more time and commitment to really get there.
Absolutely. And what more can you tell us about the culture then, and what it feels like on the day-to-day basis? I know, unfortunately, as we're talking about this now, you know, we're all working from home, which is really difficult for lots of businesses to navigate. But just generally, what's the culture and the teams and the social side of things? I think that's really, really important for, well, Gen Z and probably anyone, to be honest. But
yeah, totally. So when I joined the company back in January, it was obviously all virtual. So I spent my kind of first few months meeting everyone via the screen, which was, you know, it was okay actually. And I was able to meet a vast majority of the company, able to communicate to the company clearly. You know, we've got all of the tech and systems that we need to make that possible. But I have to say, when we were then able to go back to the office around kind of spring and early summer, and that's when I really got to kind of feel a sense of what the company was really all about and the people. And it's the conversations you can have whilst having lunch or having a coffee. So one of the really big things at Brainlabs is that we feed everyone. So if you're in the office, you get breakfast and lunch every day. And everyone eats communally, especially lunch. So at lunchtime, lunch is open for a few hours, and you'll go in and just take a seat at one of the tables, and it means that you just speak to people that you might not already know. It's a chance to have a kind of social connection around the business, and it means you take a proper break and don't eat lunch at your desk. So culturally, eating together is really, really important to us. And we're trying to ensure that that's a consistent experience across all of our offices around the world, whether you're an office of 300 people like I have in London, or an office of 30 people like I have in Manchester. You still should get that same kind of experience that food is bringing us together. So we're very passionate about food at Brainlabs. And I think that also kind of connects to the fun side of the business. So pre-pandemic, Brainlabs had a kind of hard-working culture, but also a lot of fun. And a lot of the fun was happening when people were together. And we've all tried to have fun, haven't we, over the last couple of years on screens, and we've all had enough Zoom quizzes to last us a lifetime. We're going to go back to them this week, I think, for a few more end of year Zoom quizzes, but we'd all much rather do it in person. It's definitely a lot more fun. And agency life in general, I'd say, has a fun and social aspect to it. It's work hard, play hard. That is a kind of constant theme that you'll find across any agency probably that you join. But what I like about Brainlabs is that's also then coupled with this huge and kind of growth and ambition and passion for solving problems all of the time and not getting in the way of ourselves to do it.
I love that. That sounds amazing. It sounds a little bit like university, sort of getting together in the canteen and having lunch together.
It's a lot like that. It's a very easy step, I think, from one kind of institution to another to some degree.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, I'm getting quite good at the Zoom quizzes, so that's the only silver lining there. So yeah, hopefully I'll win a few more. How about D&I then? So obviously we've got a very diverse audience listening to us, and I think Gen Z especially very, very socially conscious, and consider that now, the values of the companies when they decide where they want to work. What can you share about the sort of Brainlabs approach to diversity and inclusion?
Sure. So the kind of guiding belief is that diverse voices around the table give a better result. End of. So if you're sitting in a room and you look around that room and see 7 others like yourself, at least 6 of you are wasting your time. And you need to ensure that as you build teams, you have that consideration throughout. So at entry level, it should be the easiest time for us to ensure that we have a diverse intake that is representative of the world that we live in, of the cities that we are recruiting in. And we don't kind of go out and handpick people and ask them to come and work at Brainlabs. So we are limited to some degree by the people that apply. But what we are doing is ensuring that we are making the application to Brainlabs more visible and more available to anyone from any walk of life, any background. So whether that's through apprenticeship programs that we have with Multiverse, or through advertising our roles on more diverse job boards, for example, we're doing all of that to ensure that we get a wider group of people in at that kind of application level. The second thing to consider is that when our founder first set up the business, he built the team originally on this theory that he could teach mathematicians and scientists to be marketeers, rather than what was happening in the rest of the industry, which was trying to teach marketeers to be mathematicians and scientists. And he's right, that actually the other way around is a lot easier, because that kind of mathematical scientific brain can be applied to solve so many different problems, and given Brainlabs this unique culture and unique approach to the way that we work. And that meant that we were hiring from lots of STEM backgrounds, and at the time quite a limited set of universities. So we've really broadened out the number of universities that we are hiring from. We also, for a period of time, broadened out the type of courses and subjects that we were looking for as well. The challenge with that is it brought a number of people into the organization that actually didn't really enjoy the spreadsheets and the mathematical side of it and the data side of it. So actually STEM is still kind of our core focus, because we know that that type of entry-level employee is going to probably thrive more, and they're going to enjoy their early years. Whereas someone that's come from more of an arts background might struggle just with the amount of data and spreadsheets they're going to have to consume in their first few years in the business. So we're trying to get kind of diversity of candidate in terms of background, but we're being quite clear on what we need in order to for people to do well, really, at the business. And that doesn't have to be a degree. It can just be, it can be at A level, it can be GCSE, it can be BTEC, or any other kind of qualification that you have. And you can apply through our apprenticeship scheme or through the graduate entry as well. And everyone starts on the same level, so we don't discriminate between the education that you've had up until the point of joining Brainlabs. We pay on the role rather than the education that's led to it.
Brilliant, brilliant. No, it's great to hear, and I think it's so important for employers to be really, really intentional about these things. And I think we've seen lots of organisations just sort of put out a statement, but not really back it up with that action. And it's so important to go to all these different communities that you've mentioned, and add value and making sure they're aware of your opportunities. So I certainly really, really appreciate that. So you've clearly had a very varied career, and you've, I'm sure, developed a lot of lessons that could help anyone listening right now. So is there anything you could share with us, any lessons that you've learned, maybe something you wish you knew when you just left college or university that you know now, looking back, I wish I knew that? What would that be?
So I didn't go to university, which meant that when I joined the business, my expectations were probably slightly lower than somebody who had come from university. Now, I didn't think the world owed me anything particularly. I felt hugely fortunate to have been given the role, because certainly at the time, like, very few non-graduates would get into the type of company that I was in. So I think that really sort of set the framework for how I was going to work and how I was going to take on any opportunity that was given to me. And I was kind of good at raising my hand, saying, yeah, I'll have a go. Yes, I'd like to try that, and trusting the people above me to give me those opportunities, and then proving I could do the work, and building my career from there. So I think what I learned from that is you've got to be really open-minded when you first enter an industry, and be aware that the job that you think you're coming into, or the role that you think you might want in the future, might actually turn out to be something different, and that's okay. And it's the type of industry where you can actually really zigzag your way up to the top. You don't have to just take a linear path, and it's not a race. Careers can last a lifetime, so don't be in a rush. Like, try to enjoy what you're doing and feel confident in what you're doing. And I think that confidence comes through time and experience, and you can't rush that. However much, you might say, I'm really ambitious and I want to get to the top really quickly. You will be better at what you do at the next stage if you just give yourself time to really learn, cement your experiences, and build at each stage. So yeah, I always give very similar advice to any entry-level joiner, is just be open-minded about the role you're doing, put your hand up and get involved, and just keep on being kind of reflective and analytical about yourself as well, and the role that you're playing, what you're learning, what you want to do, and find mentors and good managers to help you kind of make your way up and across.
Wow, a lot of great advice there. And yeah, no, it's so interesting. I think sometimes, well, I for one, I often hear, I only want this job, this specific SEO role in London. It has to be this company, and it's like, when I think, yeah, at times it's important to be very, very open-minded. And one of the mistakes I think I made at the beginning was probably being a little bit too, oh, I'm going to hit the ground running and, contribute in every single meeting, and, put my hand up for everything. And actually, it's fine to only speak on or contribute to things that you actually know about, not kind of trying to overstretch yourself to show off or climb the ladder quickly, I think is important, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's something that you learn over time as well, that actually you don't need to be the person speaking in the room all of the time. Sometimes it's better to be the person listening and then just make one comment that can be more powerful. And I think you have a responsibility as well as an individual, if you feel that you're representing a certain community in any room that you're in, to speak up and don't waste the seat that you're in. So it's not to say, you know, you're under pressure to speak up because you're the only woman in the room, for example. But if you don't, then you are wasting that opportunity, because you will have a different point of view to every other person sitting in that room. Can almost guarantee it. So just like build that confidence to share a perspective, but don't feel like you've got to, you know, dominate the meeting. Just say something. You get noticed.
There you go. Yeah, awesome. And it is interesting. So you mentioned at the beginning, in terms of your experience, you've worked startup, really large organization, WPP, and another, you know, large agency, I guess, maybe in between sort of thing.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what are the big differences then across the three? What can someone be considering then if we're looking to get maybe our first role? Any thoughts on who's suited to each one of those categories, or deciding between the three?
Yeah, I mean, they're all fantastic options in their own right. So like starting at the smallest in a startup, if you go into a startup at entry level, it's going to be chaotic. There probably won't be a clear entry level training plan. You're going to get thrown in the deep end, and you're going to get your hands dirty. You're going to get a lot of exposure to senior people, because the agency will be, or the business will be, much more collapsed in terms of kind of hierarchy and size. But what you might lack is kind of structure and breadth of experience that you can learn from. But it's going to suit somebody that really loves to just figure it out as they go along, can be really kind of confident and self-starting, and doesn't need to be kind of handheld. Otherwise you're not going to do very well in an organization like that. So I think it suits a certain type of personality to do well at that stage, when you're not the one bringing the experience. You're just bringing the warm body, essentially, and an open mind into that company. In a scale up, it's like a step up from that. So you've still got an element of the kind of chaos and the excitement that comes with growth as well. So if you like being in an environment that feels quite buzzy and agile and things changing really quickly, and that you can actually have a real impact on the product and business, then a kind of scale up organization is going to be the right place for you to go. And then you've got kind of the more traditional, more established businesses, and you know, there you're going to get absolutely kind of huge career opportunities potentially, but you're one very tiny person inside a very, very big machine. So your ability to make an impact is really reduced. Your opportunity to stand out is harder because there's more competition, but you benefit from there being much more structure around what you do and the organization that you're working in. It's less chaotic, it's slightly slower pace. Lots of people to potentially learn from, be mentored by, much bigger kind of organizational infrastructure, like mentoring programs, training and development programs. So all of that is kind of much more kind of clearly laid out. And if you're somebody that sort of would suit that more kind of, I don't want to call it corporate, because agencies aren't generally that corporate, but certainly in comparison to a startup or a scale up, they'll have a bit more of that kind of corporate feel. Someone that likes things to be very structured and organized and professional, you're going to do better in an organization like that. So I think they're all fantastic, and anyone can probably do well everywhere. But wherever you lean into the things that I've just described might help you choose the type of business that will be best for you.
Yeah, no, I think that's super helpful, and it's an interesting decision you have to make, isn't it? But you can't really go wrong. You get an experience at the end of the day. I started in a scale up, and I think that gave me, it's quite a narrow role, but it gave me quite a lot of responsibility really early on, which I think was great. And then I went to work at BT Sport after that, so much more corporate, much more, like you said, you know, a cog in a bigger machine.
Yeah.
Incredible learning and development opportunities though, because it can be so varied in I think larger organizations, but yeah, maybe a little bit too much corporate authority for me. So yeah, had to do the startup thing after that. How about for any, because you've also founded your own businesses as well, right? So how about for any entrepreneurs out there listening, any advice for any first-time founders?
So I think founding businesses is probably a slight overstatement of, of my own personal achievements. But yes, I set up a nutrition business. So I had a kind of plan B that I trained to be a nutritional therapist. And this was at a time before I had children. And I was working really hard. And I just at the time looked up and didn't see many women above me with kids making the career look like it was something that I was going to want to do. So I kind of went off and started training in my own time, really, to become a nutritionist. And that was a course that went over kind of 3 years whilst I was working. And once I'd kind of qualified, something had changed in me, in that I still loved the kind of nutrition business, but actually having something to focus on outside of work had made me enjoy my work more, because my whole life wasn't so centered around what I was doing for that business. And I had a kind of a way out and another route that I could take if at any point I decided to press the eject button. So it kind of made it easier actually to be more objective about the job that I was doing, how hard I was working, and whether I thought I could see kind of a future there. So anyway, I decided to kind of carry on doing both in tandem, and I set up a small kind of private practice and website, and I wrote a very kind of basic book on detox plans, and started selling those online. But then, as the kind of the two businesses are sort of scaling up in their own right, so my kind of employed role and my own little business, and then I had children on top of that, something had to give in the mix. So, nutrition is there for me in the background, might be something that I retreat to at some point later in my life, when I want something that's a little bit more low key. For now, it's just there to kind of look after myself, my family, and my friends. So, I'm still very interested in the subject, but not running the business. The other business that I created was a small agency inside an agency. So when I was at Mindshare, I saw this business opportunity to create a business model that was there to service startups. And this is what really kind of created my love and passion for wanting to work in a startup environment. So I set up a small agency that had a totally different way of working, different commercial models, that was able to kind of run with an element of freedom, but still had the backing and support of the kind of the bigger infrastructure that sat in the business. And then from there, I went into a startup and built the UK business from scratch for Frida. And what I've learned from kind of all three of those experiences is that it's just you. You look around, you think, well, who can do this thing? Like, where's the IT support, for example? Like, it doesn't exist. Like, you are everything. You're the accountant. You're the IT support, you're the person designing the office. When you start to get to kind of a bigger organization, you've got to do all the hiring and recruitment. You've got to create the documents from scratch because they don't exist. It's all on you. So you need a lot of energy, a lot of commitment and passion to the cause. You've got to accept the knockbacks and be very resilient. So I think my kind of personal level of resilience is really high, sometimes maybe to a point of danger. Like I can take quite a lot before I'm like, hang on a minute, this is all a bit too much. So don't go anywhere near being a startup or an entrepreneur if you're not resilient, because you're going to get a lot of no's before you get the yeses. So that's really important to bear in mind. And you've got to be super passionate about the thing that it is you're creating. Like, if you don't believe it, no one else is going to. So you've got to believe it. But then you've also got to listen really, really carefully to the feedback that you're getting from the clients that you're selling your proposition to, the people that you're working with, and then build a team around you of people that are different to you, that will challenge you in a nice way, in a kind of collaborative way, but bring skill sets and experiences that you don't have personally. And sometimes hire people that are better than you. In fact, always hire people that are better than you. Don't try to hire below you, because I think that's when growth really slows down.
Wow, yeah, lots to digest there. No, I think that's Really, really interesting. And yeah, you've got to be passionate about it. Otherwise, you're going to quit when it gets hard, and it will inevitably get hard at times, right? But I think it's an
Totally.
incredible, that entrepreneurial streak. It's an incredible quality to have. I think when I think about hiring, I try to look for that in people. And yeah, anyone who's gone out there and just really tried something, really, tried to launch or start a side hustle
Yeah.
even from the ground up. I think it's a great, great trait to have. And don't be shy about putting that on your CV and mentioning it in
Yeah.
interviews as well. I think often sometimes maybe I think people don't have pride in what they've done in their personal life, but I think that's really, really
Yeah.
important. That helps you stand out, in the
It
application
definitely
process.
does. And don't be afraid to talk about the failures in there as well, I think, actually. So when things go wrong is actually when you learn the most. And it can be tempting to just talk about all the stuff where it went really great and look what I've achieved, and everything's really perfect. But actually, life isn't perfect. People aren't perfect. And if you're able to talk about when I got it wrong, or when things didn't go as I expected, here's what I did, here's how I rallied, here's how I kind of show my resilience. That's a much more interesting story than someone showing up and saying, I got straight A's, I'm awesome, I've just done so well in my whole life now can I have a job? I'm sure they're super bright, fantastic, but things will go wrong at work. And exams aren't like clients. Clients are much more kind of human, and they will be irrational in the way that they think. And you've got to be ready for someone to tell you you're wrong, and that can be really hard to hear that for the first time.
100%. And I was told once, the only reason we have jobs is because there are problems to solve,
Yeah,
essentially. If there weren't any problems, we wouldn't have any jobs. So, if you
exactly.
tried and failed, then that's valuable experience, for a job
Mm.
that you could be going into. So, last question for me, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Can't take up too much of your time. So we've obviously, it's been a very, very difficult job market. Lots of people putting themselves out there and not quite able to get that first perhaps corporate job that they're really, really out there going to try to get to boost their CV, which I think is quite difficult. So we're facing, a lot of rejections, particularly in this period.
Mm.
Have you got any advice for anyone listening who might be going through that to either make them feel more confident in the future, or just more understanding of what they're going through, if you like?
Yeah. So don't give up would be my first bit of advice, because if you want to get into this particular industry, it's a thriving industry, it's a growing industry. A lot of the delays around hiring entry level people has been just due to the situation of not being face to face, and knowing that actually when somebody joins a business at the beginning, they need like that day-to-day guidance. And sitting at home on your own, in your bedroom maybe, or in a shared lounge or kitchen, is not the best environment to try and start a career in. So try to be patient. But the one big thing that I think will be really important is, okay, so what did you do with your time? So whilst you didn't have a job, what did you do? And it's in that story that I think you can really start to separate the people that have got something interesting about them and real potential to be an asset to a company. These are people that were like, oh, I just chilled, I didn't do much. I watched a lot of Netflix, etc. So, I'm not saying go and start a business necessarily, but do something valuable that you feel that when you look back, you'll say, I used that 6 months or whatever it was to make an impact on something that was important to me, and this is how I use my time. And it can be absolutely anything, but just something that shows that you've got a bit of kind of get up about you, and you're not going to give up when things are difficult. But it's also, I think, a great time to be an entry level joiner, because the demand for staff in the market is super high right now, and staff with experience are hugely in demand, and therefore it's very competitive. So as a business, we've made a very kind of particular decision to say, okay, we're going to hire more people at the kind of ground up level and train them, because it enables us to train people in the right way, as we kind of discussed earlier, but also to not have to worry about those kind of experienced hires 6-12 months from now, because we'll be kind of growing our own talent. So there are definitely lots of opportunities at Brainlabs. If anything I've said to you today kind of floats your boat and you think, yeah, this is me, I'd love to be in an organization like this, then please do apply. And we do hire a few times a year, so if it's not now, there might be an opportunity in the future. And just do keep looking, do those investigations, offer yourself up, do work experience. work experience is the reason I got into this industry. Like sometimes you've got to put yourself out there a bit, work for free, or I don't think it's free anymore. I think, you know, back in my day, didn't have to pay me anything to do to do work experience, but now we would. But it just shows willing, you're prepared to kind of give it a go.
Well, Joe, thanks so much. This has been incredible. I'm sure there's lots of people that are now very, very excited to apply. I can guarantee that. And as we're sat here today, you know, check out the link in the description or head over to wearediverse.io. We've got the Brainlabs marketing executive role live right now. So please do go check that out. Joe, thanks again, once again. And yeah, it's been wonderful having you on. And everyone listening, good luck with the applications.
Thank you so much. I've loved joining you.